right, hello, Tide fans. Welcome to Tide Talk. I'm your host, Sean Taylor, here with my buddy Jimmy Messick, Maurice Booth. And folks, listen, it would just not do justice if I did not start out the show with Maurice's new shoes. Jimmy, what do you think about those shoes right there, man?
I mean, I love them, but of course he had to try to one-up me because, he wasn't appreciating my shoe game.
I mean, so I don't know what I could possibly do to – Jimmy starts out the first show with these shoes, and then now you're coming – I don't know if that can be topped right there, Maurice.
Well, first of all, these shoes.
You're not going to be able to top them, that's right. Sure.
Second of all, no, you're not. But you can go into my buddies. This is a buddy of mine that grew up with and went to college with. He does all kinds of shoes at University of Alabama. PhilipWilcox.com. He designs these. He makes them himself. He does anything that you want. He just happened to do these for me because he knows I love Bama. And I told him I'll wear them on the show. And I give him a little plug.
Get some free publicity.
So, yeah, go out there and take a look at it. But, yeah.
The bottom line is you need to up your shoe game.
Obviously, I've got to up my shoe game. I'm generally known for my shoe game, but I am failing in that department right now.
Well, I'm known for shoe shows. So, we're talking about cleats, right?
That's right. Keeping it PG-13. Keeping it PG-13.
Okay.
So, guys, let's get to the real reason that we're having this show. Another win, kind of expected. A little disappointment, I think, if you read some of the stuff that's out there. If you hear from some of the players. Bryce Young talked about he didn't like what film, they put out there for us, and I kind of agree. What's your take? Jimmy, you go first. What's your spin on Saturday?
So, I'm glad it was a couple of days ago. Give me time to kind of cool off a little
Process
bit.
it.
And, process it, because I'm not sure what to make of what I saw on Saturday, honestly. I was extremely embarrassed, honestly, as a Bama fan. I was mad. And I guess everything that we hear Saban talk about, that whole rat poison stuff and getting these kids ready, man, it happened this past week. So, like I said, I was embarrassed to a point. Yes, our defense, I think, is still legit. We had a couple of those breakdowns. We were playing a lot of young players on that side of the ball. You can excuse that to a degree, but, man, there is no excuse for us not to just be able to do what we wanted or needed to do on the offensive side of the ball, and I didn't feel like we did.
Yeah.
I thought Mercer was punching us in the face. I was expecting, these gashes of 8 and 10 and 12 and 15-yard runs just whenever we wanted to get them there. And, man, it was just a struggle. It felt like to get 2 or 3 yards sometimes. And so, I don't know. I was extremely, extremely disappointed.
Maurice?
Yeah. But I'm sorry.
We're past the shoes. Let's get on to the.
You may be. Anyway, no, I was like, well, who's that guy sitting over there? I'm the one that usually badmouths us.
You got to agree with me. No,
I didn't say that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. It was blasé as expected. I was closest in the scoring prediction because I knew that we would be flat. It's Mercer. They make great lawyers, but not great football players. So you knew they were going to come.
Like pretty good football players, actually.
They weren't too bad. But the only thing that really surprised me, of course, intensity was embarrassing. But it was. We talked about this 2 weeks ago in our opening show. Was that there should be no breakdown in communication in the secondary. 14 points later against Mercer, we see that there's a breakdown in communication in the secondary. And maybe that's just on Daniel Wright. I don't know. But for the most part, the secondary to me had the worst performance by any of them. I think there are some things that are starting to clear up because that's what Saban always does every year. You let people play and they kind of play out. And when I say that, I'm thinking more of running backs. I see why B-Rob is a starter, and I see why Trey Sanders is number 3, not number 2. So, yes, I like him a lot. He seems to really want to play. When I say that, when you really want to play, you've done your homework and you know what to do. I don't quite see that with Sanders.
Yeah, I think we all can agree it was a subpar performance. Is that a product of who we were playing? Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Does it make us feel any better? Obviously not. I even read, that we were favored by 56. Las Vegas was expecting us to win by 56 or what have you, and we come well short of that. But, in the grand scheme of things, that was a good time to have one of those games. You're way more talented. You have way more depth. If there's going to be a game like that, certainly it's better to do that against Mercer, and for us to see that we cannot come out and play this weekend that way. You can't have those in the SEC. You can't have those against top 10, top 5.
Or you
teams.
might get shook. Yeah. If you don't shake out of it, you might get shook. That's his comments.
So, man, I am frustrated with some of the play. I know we'll talk a little bit more about it as we get into the show. I'm frustrated with some of the things going on with the offensive line. You mentioned you expected to see some of those 8, 10, 15-yard gashes in those runs, and so was I. I was expecting us to dominate the line of scrimmage, to pretty much have our way with their defensive front, and we didn't. Early on, 3 and out with a sack, second possession having to punt, deep in our just not kind of what you were expecting. Now, yes, we did come out and it was 27-0 at the halftime and that sort of thing. I just can't imagine how difficult it is for these guys. And it's the dead horse that we have beaten every year, it seems like, on this show. It's so difficult when you're number one and people are talking about you. And
I know
it's poison.
I know what you mean. I live it every day.
Not where I was going with that, but we'll run with it.
But you always got to, look at a couple of things. Evan Neal proved, as we have said, that he is the best tackle in football. He was pancake. He was tossing.
They said perfect.
Right.
The article I read was he was perfect.
So I think, like I said, when what coaches do, they're going to look at the film and they're going to notice these players that are consistent. Just not, we talk about focus, yes, your focus, but just in your execution. And you're seeing that in little bits, little pieces. And you're not going to get everybody up for Mercer as you did Miami. Florida's a different story. It's an opening SEC game. On the road. Hostile environments. We'll love it when we stomp a mud hole in them in the swamp, because that's what the swamp is a mud hole. So I'm fine with everything, because it is, like you said, it is that second week matchup to where the coaches get to go, keep that up.
Yeah. And
you'll be watching the game with me.
The rest of the season over here.
Too, maybe Mercer's a little bit better than we give them credit for. I don't know.
I was going
maybe not.
Huh?
But exactly. But defensively,
you're going with that?
Secondary, I am.
Okay.
Hey, they might be a little bit better. Who knows? But in the secondary, we were out 2 starters. We played a ton of young guys. So again, maybe give them a pass. I saw some good things, saw some bad things on that side of the ball. But man, Mr. Owens, thank you so much for what you did in the national championship game last year, coming in, filling in the center position. But dude, you're not a right tackle. I'm sorry. He needs to be gone. That side of the ball has got to be fixed, or we're not going to.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation, Jimmy, about that. Even Saban mentioned, into August, it was still a combination of who was playing where and the line, and I think it's still ongoing. I don't think they solidified that.
See, and if he's the best we got for right tackle,
makes you
makes you
worry.
I don't know. Again, I don't know if somebody's hurt. We don't know that. I don't know what's going on. But man, we've got to get better on the right side of the ball.
I feel like I'm in a twilight zone where I'm the one that's happy and y'all are the ones that are upset.
Well,
it's got to be the shoes.
It's got to be. I'd be happy too if I was wearing those shoes.
Sure,
probably.
Right.
I don't know. Again, a lot to discuss still about the game. At the end of the day, it was a 31-point win. At the end of the day, I think it was 31, if I'm not mistaken.
I was told
30 plus point win.
I was told there'd be no math on this show, but go ahead.
A win is a win. It was Mercer. We were expected to play better, but as you mentioned, Jimmy, we did play a lot of young people. Regardless of the height, Bryce Young still only was starting his second game. He's still working with a new wide receiver in Jameis Williams that, is a transfer in. Granted, he played at Ohio State and was a starter and that sort of thing, but scheme and surrounding and offensive line, all those things have a lot to do with it. So let's take a quick break because, again, a lot still to talk about.
Calm down.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back here on Tie Talk, and we'll discuss the Alabama Mercer debacle, if you want to call it that. Hold your seats, Tie fans. We'll be right back to Tie Talk.
Hey, Big Al, you need to be staying 6 feet away from me. And haven't I told you you have to wear a mask when you're in this building?
I mean, come on, Big Al. We're supposed to be practicing social distancing, which means we have to be 6 feet away from each other. Don't worry, Big Al. We've all been there before, buddy. Let's go get you a mask.
All of us want to make sure we play football this fall. And to make that happen, we must be sure we stay at home if we have symptoms, wash your hands often, follow all social distancing guidelines, and please wear a mask anytime you're around other people.
Fans, just breaking down the game a little bit more. And again, yes, Jimmy, I mentioned the word debacle simply from the perspective of we're supposed to play better than we did. And there's a lot of things to kind of be picked on. Maurice, you mentioned early in the season, man, you were really high on our DBs, but they didn't play as well. Who knows the true reason why? Was it because of the mix of people that were in there? Was it because of the injuries? I don't know. It's tough to say. Could Mercer have been a little bit better than what we thought? Maybe so. Still shouldn't have been that close of a game. Still shouldn't have been them scoring 14 points on us regardless. But Maurice, let's address another thing that potentially could be a threat. Anderson, still banged up with an injury. I mean,
he's questionable.
Maurice,
what,
buddy? Who keeps telling you to use that microphone?
And that guy in the lobby that had on the wife beater.
Dude, he does not even work here.
Oh, well. So I don't need this. It's got an on-off.
No.
I like that one better than last week. So.
You have.
I'm not going to say anything.
You have. Yeah.
But anywho, the question is secondary communication, whether or not, look, they're interchangeable during practice, so there should not be any breakdown. I think it's somebody not being prepared properly during the week, studying film and studying that week's playbook, because there is no excuse for that, for whatever coverage or whatever communication takes place during the play or prior to the play, to know what you have in coverage, whether you got deep or you got man or you're breaking off and somebody else is picking up deep. But obviously it looked like from when they ran it back, he was the only one that saw it different, he being right. And I like Daniel Wright. I really do. I thought he had a great year last year. But, he dropped the ball, so to speak.
Well, and you saw again, I mean, he was having some conversation on the sideline.
Yeah.
Not the first time he's been in that situation.
And I was a little surprised at Battle. I'm still expecting more from him. But kudos to Kool-Aid for his first pick.
Freshman, yep.
Interception. I'm glad you mentioned that about you were expecting Battle. So let me dare I say this? We talked about it at length. It seems like last year about somebody stepping up and being the leader.
Right.
Where's that alpha dog? It's maybe part of this, some of that. I mean, who's our leader? Who's the leader on the defensive side of the ball?
Jimmy, who's
the leader on the offensive side of the ball, for that matter? But are we 2 games in? I mean, I don't know who that alpha guy is.
Well, you're right. I mean, we have talked about that for a couple of years because there isn't an Ashawn Robinson, a Jonathan Allen. We haven't seen that in a couple of years. Doesn't mean we can't be good. It just means that guy that's going to grab you by the face mask, tell you to get your crap together.
Well, last year I think there were probably 6 or 7 that were like that, which is even better. It didn't have to be an alpha because they all stepped up last year. When somebody did, and they're all gone. So, who is it?
So I don't know.
Is it Henry To'oto'o? I said that right. Or is it Christian Harris? Who wants to be
I
that
think it would be Christian Harris because he's been there. I mean,
third year?
so, but again, I don't know. I just threw it out there because it's something we always talked about.
Well, it's
We have-
definitely
we have
not
to
something
this
that you see, that you actually see on the screen, that you physically see someone taking command of, like you would see an Ashawn Robinson or a Jonathan Allen. You don't see that, or taking over a game for that matter. I mean, come on, let's go back to the Superman play from 5 years ago, you know, when Jonathan Allen was making plays at Texas A&M, like you see, and
Right.
just taking over a game. But you do see guys making plays. Let's talk about Kool-Aid. You know, let's talk about Battle, who's, you know, kind of coming into that leadership role on the back end.
Mhm.
But you got guys up front. Anderson, who is only a sophomore now.
Yeah.
And by the way, we didn't get into the question I asked about his injury, but we will. I mean, but, you know, is he a guy? Is he a guy that just does it with his actions and he's not very verbal? I mean, you know.
I mean, that's usually, you know, as far as leadership goes, until he gets out into the media, that's usually locker room.
Yeah.
And so you know who's got it, and Dale's point, who the alpha is.
I mean, what about somebody? What about a Mathis or a Ray on the defensive end? I mean, on the defensive line. You know, I don't know. Again, it's one thing to make plays, but there's also another thing to make plays and be that leader, that vocal leader that I feel like we're lacking right now. Again, it's not showing up so much. I mean, obviously we played 2 games, we won both games, but you know. But another thing I want to bring out too, not to jump ship or change subjects real quick, but man, how many teams are in the SEC?
14.
14. Well, guess where we are on penalties right now?
14, 13.
We're 12th in the league in penalties. Now, is that a product of that leadership and some of that lack of focus during practice? I mean, of course,
I see how you timed that in, Jimmy.
I mean, you would think
Pretty
you would
good.
think
That was
Saban,
good.
He's
you know,
learning.
would be addressing that. I hope he is. But man, we're 12th in the league in penalties. Again,
Well, we're not
just a
14th.
snippet of what's to come, Tide fans, on the stats with Jimmy.
I can
hope.
remember us having this conversation just a few years ago,
Yes.
you know, but we were winning football games.
We were winning games, but that was 2 years ago, and we lost to LSU and Auburn, didn't win the West. It's discipline. It comes back to haunt you
Yeah.
no matter what. So you can sit there and ride and coast and be happy and everything, but in those big games, penalties, discipline is going to come
I
back.
brought that up just because it kind of reminds me of that team from a couple of years ago that probably should have won the national championship, but didn't because
Right.
of some of these issues. And again, I'm not saying we're going to be that team again, but man, I just some of this stuff again is just frustrating.
Well, there's something that you can always say with respect to a team that has discipline. I mean, those disciplined teams find a way. You know, it sometimes even more so than the most talented team. I mean, again, you go back to 2 years ago. You know, discipline is something that you can't really put a value on, but it's critical. And are we seeing that? Let's look at Billingsley, who everybody had high expectations for Billingsley this year, but he hadn't really even seen the field much. Go back to what you were saying about that leader on the defense. Are some of these penalties due to the discipline that we are either lacking, or, you know, so a lot of good questions, a lot of things that let's get away from the fact that, man, we're super, super talented and super deep. Now we got to take that and put those other small ancillary things in with that to be a championship team. And we're going to experience that come Saturday. I mean, I don't know, you know, I haven't really seen much of Florida, but I know that they're a top, 15, top 10 team, and it's a SEC road game. You know, Bryce Young's first true test on the road, hostile environment. So some of those things are going to come into play, and it'll be interesting to see how we kind of respond, especially after this week. I would think that, man, we're going to respond really well, because I can only imagine that Saban is in their grill about how we performed on Saturday.
There have been several comments about this was going to be a very intense week of practice. So
Rightfully so.
yes. So getting your focus back and getting in your ear hole. I can imagine what today's practice must be like.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I hope too. Again, leadership on the field.
The locker room guys. That are,
I hope somebody is in somebody else's ear that's on a player, somebody I'm lining up next to.
I got So all right, I think I need to be a jerk here. I think
difficult.
No, it's not. Ask anybody I've gone on a date with. I think that on the offensive side of the ball, and I'd like to have them all in a room to challenge them, is like, you have got to be kidding me to the fact that the one that is the most prepared is the smallest guy and probably the youngest is your quarterback. And he's the one that's there and is leading by example. He's not like that yet, and he'll earn it. But I expect, something from some of these returning starters, or that people that have been there 3 or 4 years.
Owens, who's a 6-year senior.
Owens,
starting right tackle.
But Evan Neal, you've earned the right. The other thing is,
Robinson, our running back.
Yeah, 5-year.
I ain't seen him get nobody's face yet.
You have that. You've earned that right, in my opinion, for as long as you've been there. And wide receivers, hey, bruh, Ruggs and Judy, and they're gone, and you ain't them.
Right.
You better make a name for yourself, identity for yourself, and you got to start doing that on the field by your play, by your attitude, by your discipline. You're not showing it yet. You better step it up because it's coming. SEC.
Great time for a break. We can come back and talk about the receivers. We can talk about the offense a little bit. So hold your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
College football fans and players both want full stadiums this fall. Let's make sure we can safely make this happen by getting vaccinated. Please get your COVID-19 vaccine. We want Bryant-Denny Stadium loud again this coming season. Roll Tide.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. So, Jimmy, you mentioned earlier in the year JoJo Earl.
Wait a minute. I'm looking up ancillary. You used it earlier.
Ancillary. Not ancillary.
Oh, I got
ancillary.
I got Aunt Sylvia. Sorry. Go ahead.
You mentioned JoJo Earl, and I'm reading an article about the fact that he was up there with respect to receiving yards and this past weekend, and I believe it was 45 yards in punt return yards. he is the guy that they're expecting to give us some explosiveness, some big plays.
Remember the name, Tide fans. JoJo Earl. Please put him in. Let him play.
Yeah,
yes, that's a sign.
I do think that he has some maneuverability. You look at. I'm not so sure that I could compare him to Waddle yet, because Waddle will take it and get to the house and just get past you. I haven't seen that yet. And I'm not saying that he won't. But
wait a minute. I just tackled JoJo Earl. He's about as big as a minute. Come on, man. He can get there, but you need to hold off on the Heisman.
I'm waiting to see it. Again, there's some comparisons, and they were talking about it this past weekend that they're comparing him to Jalen Waddle.
No.
I ain't seen that yet. Like I said, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because Joker had a couple of good catches in traffic, taking a hit. I was impressed by that. He's not afraid of contact. It's big when you're that. When you're that, stature of a guy and you're going across the middle and making catches.
Sure.
That's.
I get that.
I don't care if it's Mercer or not. You're still getting popped, and that's important. But you made the comment about talking about the receivers. Look, you got two big targets out there. Mechie and Williams are two big receivers, fast.
Right.
Williams is supposedly the speed guy.
Fastest guy on the field.
There's a chance. There's a chance to get to some of those numbers that we have seen. I'm not comparing them to Devontae Smith and Henry Ruggs and I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that they have an opportunity to do some big things. You put both those guys on the field with a Slade Bolden or with a Billingsley or with JoJo Earl. Those are
possibly
matchups. Those are
but and
matchups. I
know I'm being spoiled by the last 2 years, because when those receivers got the ball on the field, there was a very good chance they were going to the house. I've seen some of these receivers walk down, with an angle, but they don't have that breakaway speed, or I haven't seen it yet, to where kind of like Devontae and Waddle, you may have had the angle on, but they were still going to outrun you. And I haven't seen that.
Especially Henry Ruggs.
Right. So, I mean, I hate to be critical. No, I don't.
No, you don't.
But I just don't see it yet. And like I said, I may be spoiled and we shouldn't compare, but if I want to compare, if you're going to be compared to greatness or you want to be great, then you have to be
gotta
compared.
Yeah, that's right. You got to be willing to be compared.
Exactly.
Holden and Earl are going to be those two guys. Remember, they're still true freshmen.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, we're going to be pleasantly surprised at production we're going to get out of those guys for us all over with.
Well, and Jimmy, I think the obvious is if we don't get better play up front, it's not going to really matter. I mean, we got to be able to run the football. Teams are going to end up being able to play a one-dimensional team, and if we're just one-dimensional, we're much easier to.
Hey, was that a lead
prepare
into my
for.
stats I got over here, or no? Talking about wrestling the ball.
I was just about to get in.
I was just curious. We're going to get to that.
I was just about to get into stats with Jimmy, just hoping that you were prepared for that.
Is that my cue?
That's your cue.
Are we ready?
Tide fans, we're about to show you a special segment, and that's Stats with Jimmy.
I'll be brief.
Okay? Is that because the stats are brief?
Well, we're two
Like your
games in.
underwear.
Few to discuss?
We're 2 games in, and I see the time is ticking. So I've already alluded to the penalties. I'm not even going to go there. So here we go.
Yeah, 12 out of 14.
Yeah, exactly. So our offense, 40-something points. We're actually 46 points a game. 10 years ago, that'd probably lead the country, right? Right now, it's 12th and 3rd in the SEC. Rushing offense, 152 and a half yards per game. Not even good to be in the top 50 nationally, and we're not even top half in the league at 152 a game. We're 10th in the league and 77th overall. Passing 310, that is in the top third, 21st nationally, 3rd in the league. Overall offense 462, which is 5th in the league and 37th overall. So, again, I mean, it's not bad, obviously, but
Yeah, it's tough when you're saying that compared to last year's numbers.
Right.
We've talked about
so
that before.
Here's
though.
another thing. Here's another stat I was going to throw out to y'all. So last year we converted 60-some odd % on third down, which is a record.
Yeah.
We're at 51% right now for the year, which is 3rd in the league, but still it's only half the time. So that's something else that jumped out at me. And then
Against subpar opponents, too.
exactly.
So far.
So then we'll just flip sides real quick. Defensively, we're giving up roughly 80 yards a game on the ground, which again is 7th in the league and 24th nationally. Passing defense, we're 173 a game, which is 6th and 39th respectively. Total 253 a game, 14th nationally and 5th in the league. So, just want to throw that out there.
That's surprising.
I know it's a small sample size, but one other thing, because we talked about this defense we have as far as getting off the field, right, on third downs. And again, third down conversions, and we're giving up 34%. That's 11th in the league.
Wow.
That's crazy, ain't it?
So
Well-
that's
Anyway.
interesting to think about.
It's like you said, it's early.
It's early.
So, and everybody else, it's not just the fact that, I mean, we haven't played, really, strong opponents like Alabama State and Akron. Sorry. But anyway, it's Miami and it's Mercer. Everybody's played a little, some smaller. I always call
Some
week
patty
2.
cakes.
I always call week 2 the battery because it's always 1 AA. So everybody pretty much does it. And now as we get into 3 and 4 and 5 weeks, you'll see everybody with conference
Well,
opponents.
it's going to be interesting to see again our opponent coming up this week. It's going to be a little bit better, to see how those stats, hold up regarding playing the Florida Gators this weekend.
So Jimmy, just really quickly, since we have a little bit of time, at Florida, in the swamp, I mean, what are your thoughts with respect to where we are right now? What have you seen from Florida? Does anything concern you?
Well, Vegas thinks we're roughly 17-point favorite, so that ought to tell you something. They're a whole lot smarter than all of us.
Well, that's debatable.
But I mean, look, man, their quarterback. If they can't figure out who their quarterback's going to be by the time we play them this Saturday, it could get ugly because I think our defense will dominate their offense. I mean, I just don't think they're that good on that side of the ball. Their defense, I mean, again, who they played this year. So I feel like it's a game that we're going to win. Who knows after what happened this past weekend. Hopefully we get that focus back.
A little bit of intensity back.
That because, again, first SEC game on the road. Only concern would be Bryce Young going on the road for the first time as a young quarterback, but I feel like we should be able to handle the game pretty easily.
Well, it's also the first road game for our punter. I don't know if that means anything. But in regards to your line, I think it's 15.5. And betting on football is like arguing with a woman. You're not going to win too many of them. So I don't care what Vegas says. I think we walk away with this. It's going to be raining down there from what I've seen on the weather forecast. They have not really – I expected more from Dan Mullen. He hasn't really secured top-notch classes year in and year out. I think everybody is back on the bandwagon.
There's some conversation that the quarterback's got a little hamstring injury. Not sure if he's going to be 100%. Not sure how that plays into. I know they've been working two quarterbacks, so not even sure if that's the guy who they were going to start anyway. But I do agree. We're favored. It started out at 16.5. Now it's 15.5. I do believe that has to say something. I'm not saying that we win by 15.5 or we win by 30 or we win by 5, but I believe that
it's a cover.
Go ahead. I believe that has to say something. I do feel like it was a good time for us to play poorly against a Mercer-type team. I don't think we could go out and do that against an LSU, against an Auburn, against a Florida, a Texas A&M, a Georgia. I think it was a good time because I also think that Nick Saban is probably the best in the country or ever at getting guys refocused and motivated. And, man, there's no better time to be motivated than now. First SEC game on the road, at the Swamp. Some firsts for a lot of guys. Is Will Anderson going to be healthy enough to be effective? They're saying that that's positive and they're every day it's getting better.
Let's answer that question you had earlier. Yes. He's going to be fine.
Yeah. I think that's just plays into the whole scheme of the game and not really letting them know what's going on. But I think
so far, Jimmy's benched two people and he put another player in.
Right.
That's hurt. But go ahead,
Coach Messy. So before we end the show, let's get some scores. I want to hear your thoughts, Jimmy. You first.
So if weather is going to be a factor, and if it is raining, I don't think we're not going to score.
Light up the scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, because again, we haven't really established ourselves on the running game yet, and so. I do feel like, though, we'll put up enough points to win the game, obviously. I think it's going to be something like a 36-13 kind of game.
I'm going to go 37-14.
Okay, 37-14.
Are you kidding me right now?
No, I think it's going to be something like 47-10 or 13. I think it's the tide rolls in the rain. That's what we are.
Tide rolls in the rain. 35-13, Tide. I think that we will come out with a different intensity, a different focus, a different concept, a different mindset. I believe Anderson will be healthy. I believe he'll make a huge difference. And I believe Bryce Young will step up and have a really good game. I believe the Joker is extremely bright. You hear Saban talk about if we could get everybody to play where he is, he's very intelligent. I like the way he moves in the pocket. I like the way he uses his feet but still looks down the field. The Joker can run, but really hasn't done that yet. That's just something that defenses have to be aware of. I'm kind of glad that he hasn't had to do it yet, that he uses his arm and makes those throws. So we'll see.
And looking at the backup, I kind of don't want him to run.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good win for Alabama. looking forward to watching the game. Looking forward to coming back here next week and talking about it. So, Tide fans, right here next week. We'll see you right here on Tide Talk. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.